my name is Jillian Hofer and I'm going to teach you how to tie-dye. There are 4 main steps in tie-dyeing. The first step would be gathering all your supplies. The second step would be preparing your clothing for the tie-dyeing. Third step would be the actual tie-dyeing of the clothing. And the fourth step would be putting the tie-dyed clothing into a plastic bag. For your first step, you're going to need to gather all your supplies, such as the dye that you'll put into a bottle such as this in lukewarm water and shake it well so the dye dissolves. You also need rubber bands to tie your white piece of clothing, which is another thing that you are going to need for tie-dyeing. Any white piece of clothing will work. I'm using a t-shirt. You also might need gloves because you will get the dye all over your hands. For the second step, you're going to need to dampen your shirt under lukewarm water so that the dye dissolves in the fabric better. Then take your dampened t-shirt and twist the middle of it into a spiral. The spiral doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it into the closest spiral you can get. Then take the rubber bands that you have as your item and put it around the shirt as so. You just put about 6 rubber bands around the shirt and try to keep it in the best spiral that you can. And once you get the t-shirt into the spiral that you think is good, you can start applying the dye for your third step. You take the bottles and you put them directly in the shirt. Try to get them as close to the shirt as you can and just squeeze the dye into the shirt. You want to put different colors of tie-dye and make sure that the colors are compatible with each other, otherwise it can turn out to be black or brown, which most people don't want on their tie-dyed shirt. Then you put the tie-dye on there, and you want the tie-dye to drip out of the bottom a little bit so that when you get your shirt out, it's more vibrant and the colors look really well on the white shirt. Then, after your shirt is tie-dyed, you're going to put it into a plastic bag to sit for about 4 to 6 hours or overnight so that the colors set well in the shirt. You're going to put it into the plastic bag and leave it overnight. And then once you take the shirt out, you're going to need to take it out of the rubber bands. And then you're going to have to rinse it under warm water so that all the excess dye comes out of the shirt, so then the first time when you wash it, it doesn't come out on any other clothing that you have. So you just rinse it out in a sink and then you squeeze it to get all the dye out, and once the water starts coming out clear, that's when you know your shirt is done. It will still be a little damp, so you can wash it so that the excess dye that you have gets out of the shirt. So don't wash a shirt with anything else in the washer. Once you're done, your shirt will look like this. This is a little white in some areas because I didn't put enough dye, but here's another take. And this shirt has more dye on it. That's why you want the most dye you can get in the shirt. So, to conclude my speech, you need to have 4 steps in tie-dyeing. The first step would be gathering all your supplies for tie-dyeing. Your second step would be getting your clothes or any type of white clothing that you have ready for tie-dyeing, such as dampening it or putting it in warm water, and spiraling it and putting the rubber bands around it. And then the third step would be actually dyeing it with your bottles of dye that you have. And your fourth step would be putting in a plastic bag overnight, and then once it's sat overnight, or 4 to 6 hours, you can rinse it out in a sink and get all the excess dye out of it. And then you'll have a nice tie-dyed shirt as of this one. Thank you for watching my speech.